Hello and welcome to the next tutorial on how to make Dmods. In this tutorial we're going to be further expanding on global variables. I know this was already put quite clearly in the previous video, which was quite long and simple, and you might already understand this, but for those who don't, I'm making this video because without variables there is no plot, and I think it's one of the most important things in Dmod creation, because without a plot there is no story, obviously, because that's the main idea of a plot. Now basically what we're going to do is we're going to continue on with the scenario we started to create in the previous tutorial. And wrong one. There we go. We're going to open OOTR and we'll just recap what we did in the previous tutorial. We made the... hold on, I'll just open the Dmod. No, this doesn't want to open. No, it's just gonna freeze on me now. Perfect. Oh, there we go. I've opened two of them. Alright, let's do this. Alright, so we talked to this green guy, and we made this fourth option that says I feel like a quest, and it says I feel like a quest. Really? I have a quest I need completed. What a coincidence. What do you need done? Can you please go and shut up that lame tree? You know, the one to the southeast? No worries, consider it done. Yep, and if we talk to him again, that option isn't there anymore because we've already received the quest. We talk to this tree. Hi, how are you? I am truly good. Yeah, about that. I need you to shut up. Why? You are a tree. You're not meant to talk, and you're lame. Well, as long as I'm here, I'm alive. That doesn't mean you need to talk. You truly think so? Ha ha ha. And so that's the end of what we've created so far. So basically what we did is we created the end story variable, and we did that in the main.c to recap, with the command make global int, and we started the end story variable at the number 0, so the first number it's gonna store is 0. Then we created this extra choice line right here that says I feel like a quest, which can only be displayed when the end story variable equals 0. So when the player chooses it, this conversation happens, and then the end story changes to 1, which also makes this choice not available anymore, since the end story is no longer 0. So once the end story variable changes to 1, we have the tree down here, which has two different conversations depending on what the end story variable is currently storing. So if the end story is equal to 0, it does this, and if the end story is equal to 1, which means the player has received the quest, it does that text that you just saw that I showed you in the game. And then after this text has been displayed and this conversation has finished, the end story changes to 2, and that's where we left off. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to continue this. So what we need to do is decide what we want to do next. So the tree has refused to shut up as long as it is alive. So now what we're going to do is we're going to actually do a little scenario here where Dink goes to find some poison to kill the tree so it can no longer talk. So what we want to do is we'll create, say, an item over here in this house that we created in a previous tutorial. So we'll find that, as we know, this warp right here, this door, warps us inside the room, which is over here. So what we'll do is we'll place, we'll find something that can be thought of as a poison. And we'll use the original pig feed graphic, but we'll just say it's a poison because It doesn't have to be pig feed. And basically we're not going to add an item at this point or make Dink actually use the pig feed on the tree. It'll just be something that where he talks to the tree and the tree dies. So what we're going to do is we're going to put this here and we're going to attach a script to this bag. So we're going to right click and press properties, and we're going to call this bag, and create the new script, and we want to make it the main procedure. And what we're going to do is we're going to make it so when Dink touches the bag it disappears, and then the end story variable changes again. So it looks like Dink has collected the bag, but at this point we're not going to make it appear in his inventory. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a touch procedure work, we need to make sure that the touch damage of this sprite is set to -1. So we're going to go to SP touch damage and current sprite -1. A sprite must always have a touch damage of -1 in order for a touch procedure to actually run. So now we're going to make the touch procedure void touch void, and what we're going to do is we're going to make it so when Dink touches it, it disappears. So we're going to go first of all, what we want to do is set the touch damage back to 0 at the start. And the reason we do this is because the whole time Dink's touching this sprite, the touch procedure continues to repeat itself every so often, every a certain amount of milliseconds. So the first line we do is we change the touch damage to 0, and that makes it so the touch procedure can no longer be run, because like I said, the touch damage of a sprite has to be -1 for the touch procedure to work. But since we're already in the touch procedure, it won't affect the rest of the procedure. It'll just make it so it won't keep repeating and resetting. Okay, so what we do is we change the touch damage to 0, and then we're going to change the end story variable again. We're going to go end story equals 3. So this will allow us to check that Dink has collected this bag of poison. And then we're going to have Dink say, I now have a bag of poison. Yay! And then we're going to go SP active and current sprite, which is the sprite the script is attached to, which is this bag, 0. And what that's going to do is SP active does exactly what it says. It can either be set to 0 or 1, and when you change it to 0, the sprite is not active, it's completely gone, it's not there anymore, so it's just going to disappear. And then we're going to end the touch procedure, and then we're going to test this out. And there is an error I left in there intentionally, so we can go through the process of correction. So we'll save that, play the Dmod, and we'll do this whole scenario again. So we'll get the quest, then we'll go down to the tree, talk to the tree, and we already know what happens, so I'm going to skip it. And he refuses to shut up. And now you'll notice that if we talk to the tree, he says absolutely nothing. And the reason this is because we've only set a conversation for if the end story equals 0 and if the story variable equals 1. So once it's changed to 2, it looks in here and there's nothing for it to do, because it checks this, and this if statement returns false because the end story doesn't equal 0, so it skips that, skips everything here, and then it checks this is also false, so it skips everything in between these brackets as well. So it does absolutely nothing when Dink talks to it. Now I'm hitting the talk button right now and nothing's happening. So the way we can fix that is we can add another if statement for if story equals 2. I'm being quite I'm being faster in this one because I've already explained this in the previous, so it should be easier to understand. So now Dink can collect the bag, and you'll notice it disappears, and he says, I now have a bag. And it doesn't go into our inventory because that's not what we're doing here. And that's basically what happens. Now there is an error here. Basically, if we go out and look in this room, the way we've written this script, this bag's here from the beginning of the game, and it can be collected any time the player wants, and it's going to instantly change the story variable, to 3. So that'll skip a lot of stuff and it'll be quite confusing to the player. So basically what we want to happen is we only want this bag to be here if the player has got the quest and already talks to the tree to find out that he needs to kill it. So what we're going to do is we're going to add pretty much the same as we've done down here with the SP active and current sprite 0, but we're going to put in an if statement in the main procedure. And what we're going to do is we're going to write if end story is we're going to write doesn't equal 3. Actually, what we'll do is we'll put if it's lower than 3. So what you can see here is I put the left arrow. The left arrow signifies lower. So as well as equals, there's lower, there's higher, and there's also doesn't equal. Exclamation mark and then equal sign means doesn't equal. So basically this if statement will only ring true if the end story does not equal 3. So it can equal anything else, and then it'll everything in between these two brackets will happen. But that's not what we're going for. We're going to go if end story is lower than 3, because basically if the story is lower than 3, no, sorry, we're not lower than 2. If the story is lower than 2, we do not want the bag to be displayed. So we're going to write SP active and current sprite 0. And then we're also going to add kill this task. And what that does is make sure that this script and the sprite is definitely completely killed. And you only ever add this line if you want to make sure that the script's over. You're not going to return to the script because this kills it completely, but only for that instance. So later on when the player goes out and comes back in the screen, the sprite will be there, and if the story is indeed higher or 2 or higher, then this won't happen. It'll skip this and the sprite will live, and it'll change the touch damage to -1, which is what we'll want, if that makes any sense. And just kills that instance of the script the whole time the player's on that screen. Okay, so now if we go back into the Dmod, talk to this guy, get the quest, and I won't talk to the tree yet because I want to demonstrate that that bag will not be there yet, because basically what's going to happen is we're going to enter the screen and it's going to realize that the story variable equals 1, so it is indeed lower than 2, so it's going to kill off that sprite for now. But when Dink leaves the screen and comes back in, it's going to run that sprite and that script again, and it's still going to kill it because end story is still lower than 2. At the moment it equals 1. So now we're going to do this conversation, and now the story equals 2. So So now it's going to skip that if statement because the story isn't lower than 2, and the bag's going to be there, and we're going to collect it, and it's going to say I now have a bag of poison, yay! So you can see how that worked, and you can continue to do this. I think it's become quite clear now. The main thing I wanted to let you know is how the variables work, and now that you know, you can use equals, which will check if the variable is equal to that number. You can use lower than, which checks if the variable is lower than that number. You can use greater than, which checks if the variable is greater than that number. You can use doesn't equal, which checks if the variable doesn't equal that number. And there's also 2 other ones you can use. You can use this one. This one basically means less than or equal to. So if we just had the less than sign there, the if statement would be true if the story equal to 0 or 1. But if we have less than or equal to, then it would be true if it equals 0, 1 or 2. And you can also do the same with greater than. You can go greater than or equal to. So yeah, you can do that. But at the moment we want to leave it at less than, because we don't want the bag to be displayed until the player has got the quest and talked to the tree. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the video. I'm going to edit a bit more because I don't want the video to be long, and then I'm going to show you what I've done, and you'll be able to copy it quite easily if you understand the global variables now. So I'm going to do that now. Alright, I've done my editing and I'm back, and you might be sitting there thinking, oh my god, Rob, what have you done? You've edited it and not shown us. You've been so simple and concise for all of the tutorials and now you've messed it up. But no, don't worry, I'm about to show you everything I've done and explain it. It's just quicker this way. I haven't done anything outside the scope of what you've already learned, so if you've learned everything I've taught already, then you'll have no problem seeing what I've done. Alright, so firstly, I've decorated this room a little bit. Simple stuff, added a fireplace, added a bookshelf, a table. Basically, if I can select this, it's not going to let me use it. There we go. Fireplace is sequence 64 frame 5. The bookshelf, or bottle shelf I guess, sequence 64 frame 1. The table, sequence 87 frame 1. The chair, sequence 87 frame 2. I've got one on either side. The bed, sequence 64 frame 3. That's all I've added in this room. And basically what I've also done is, I don't think I've edited this bag at all. Nope, I haven't, so you don't have to worry about that. But I have added a script to the screen. And the way you add a script to the screen is if you right click and press properties, there's a thing that says script. This is exactly like attaching a script to a sprite, but it's attached to the screen. So basically the script is run as soon as the player enters the screen, and before any other script. This is the first script that's going to be run. So what I've done is I've created a script called house, and so if you want to follow along and do the same thing, then you should probably do the same thing. And you click edit to create the script, and it's a very straightforward and simple script. Basically what you want to do is always do it in the main procedure if it's attached to the screen, because since it's attached to a screen, you're not going to be able to talk to the screen or push it or anything, so it's always going to be a main procedure. It's going to be run when Dink enters the screen. And all I've done is added an if statement there for if the story variable equals 2, then Dink will say there's a bag of tree poison over there, that might help. So basically what's going to happen is after Dink gets the quest and talks to the tree to find out that the tree's not going to shut up until he kills it, that is when the story variable is changed to 2, and that is when this bag is going to be active and on the screen so Dink can see it. And when Dink enters this screen, he is automatically going to say this line, and that is, there's a bag of tree poison over there, that might help. So if you want to pause the video here and copy that. Do not worry if you can't be bothered copying all this, even though you probably should to practice. I'm going to include a copy of what we've done of this Dmod so far in the description of this video, under this video, for you to download. So you can download it so your Dmod will be exactly how mine is. In case there's a few minor differences, you want to make sure it's exactly the same. The second change is with this tree. What I've done is added another if statement down here, and all it is if the story variable equals 2, then the tree will say this funny line, and he says, I don't know whether the tree is a he or a she, but it says, I will chat my tree sap out until you leave, haha. So another lame line. And I've also added at the end of this if statement here, after the text and the unfreeze line, I've added a return with a semicolon. And basically what this does is it returns the tells the game to return, to finish reading the script for now. It's different to if you look at this bag script over here, we had kill this task. It's different to kill this task because kill this task destroys the entire script. The game cannot return to that script the whole time Dink remains within that screen until he leaves the screen and comes back. With return, the game simply finishes reading that script, but if Dink talks to the tree again, then the script will still be there for it to run. He doesn't have to leave and come back in order to respawn the script, if that makes sense. So, and the reason I've done this, the reason I've told the game to return and stop reading the script, is basically the clearest way I can tell you why I've done this is what's going to happen. When Dink talks to the tree, if the story variable equals 1, the game is going to run this conversation, and then the end story is going to change to 2. And let's just pretend this return isn't here for a second. I'm going to delete it. It's going to unfreeze Dink. It's going to get to the end of this if statement, and it's going to continue on because it continues reading the script. And because the story variable is changed to 2, it's now going to get to this if statement, and it's going to say if story equals 2, which it now does because we've changed it to 2 just here, then run this. So basically this conversation is going to run, and then this say line's going to also happen because the story's changed to 2, and then the if statement asking if the story is 2 comes straight after. So what I've done is added that return line so the game returns and stops reading the script for now. So that way it won't get to this and it won't run this straight after. Of course, if you wanted this to run straight after, you don't have to have that return line there, but I had that there because I think it seems a little odd that this conversation's over. Why would it, want to say that? But if Dink comes back and talks to the tree, then it'll say this line. So that's the change I've put here, so you know that. So I'm not going to save that because I just deleted the return value and re-added it, so I didn't really change it. And then the last change is with this green guy, and this is probably the biggest change, but it's still quite basic. All I've done is added this chunk right here. And the reason I've added this is basically when I've also added this original text, this first text, I've put it inside an if statement, and I've put it inside the if statement of if the story variable equals 0, then run this. So basically, if Dink hasn't gotten the quest yet, then he'll say this original, hi, my name's Dink Smallwood, blah 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 blah, and then the choice menu will run. I thought, you know, why would it might get a little repetitive that the player has to keep seeing this introductory text before the choice menu comes up, so only run it if the story equals 0, if Dink hasn't gotten the quest yet. So if the story doesn't equal 0, it's going to skip this initial text and continue on. Now I've also added this, and basically what happens here is if the story is greater than 0, so basically if the player has got the quest and he's still doing the quest, if he's talked to the tree, if he's got the tree poison, all of that, then this is going to happen. If the story is greater than 0, this is going to happen. And what this does is basically a different conversation here of obviously freeze Dink, freeze the green guy, and then the green guy says, have you shut that tree up yet? And he says this because obviously Dink's already gotten the quest because the story variable is greater than 0, and Dink says, I'm working on it. And then let's say that for now, let's pretend the story variable equals 1. So all that's happened is Dink has got the quest from the green guy, and he hasn't talked to the tree yet, and he hasn't got the poison yet, obviously. So all that's going to happen, if that's the case, Dink's going to talk to this guy, and he's going to say, have you shut that tree up yet? Dink's going to say, I'm working on it. It's then going to come here and say if story equals 2, which it doesn't, so it's going to skip this. It's going to say if story equals 3, which it doesn't, so it's going to skip this. So it's going to get to here, and what it's going to do is it's going to unfreeze Dink, unfreeze the green guy, and it's going to stop reading the script. So basically, if the story equals 1, all that's going to happen is this right here. That's all that's going to happen is these two lines. Because after that, it's going to skip all this, unfreeze Dink and the guy, and stop reading the script, which is that return line again. Okay, now let's change the scenario. What if the end story variable equals 2? Basically, if the end story variable equals 2, it's still, the story is still greater than 0, so it's still going to run this. It's still going to say, have you shut that tree up yet? Dink's going to say, I'm working on it. It's going to get here and say, does the story equal 2? Yes, it does, so it's going to run this. And Dink's then going to say, as an extension of what he's just said, there's another line here, he's going to say, I think I need to kill it. So he's going to say, I'm working on it, and then he's going to say, I think I need to kill it. In other words, I think I need to kill the tree. And then the green guy is going to say, I have some tree poison in my house. Just head east to find it. And then it's going to get to the end here, it's going to say, does the story equal 3? No, it doesn't. It's going to skip this. Once again, it's going to unfreeze Dink and the green guy and stop reading the script. So you can see what I've done here. Depending on the story, something different is said, and that's why you can use variables to really create that plot. So now we're going to change the scenario again. What if the story equals 3? Once again, it's greater than 0. It's going to say this initial, have you shut that tree up yet? Dink says, I'm working on it. It's going to skip this because the story doesn't equal 2, it equals 3. It's going to say, does the story equal 3? Yes, it does, so it's going to run this. And instead, Dink's going to say, I think I need to kill the tree with this poison I found. Because if the story equals 3, that means Dink's already picked the bag of poison up. And then the green guy's going to say, well, what are you waiting for? Hurry up and put that tree out of my misery. And then it's going to unfreeze Dink and the guy and stop reading the script. So once again, you can copy that, pause the video, or If you want, just download it from the description, but I highly recommend you try and get this working yourself rather than just taking a shortcut and using what I've put here. I don't need to save it because I haven't changed anything, but I'm going to play the Dmod as well just to further show you how this all works. Okay, so first of all I want to show you that base script that I added to the screen in that house script that makes Dink, when he walks on the screen, say, look, there's a bag of poison over there. It's not going to run unless the story variable equals 2. So see how he hasn't said anything? The poison isn't there yet and he hasn't said anything. So that's, once again, it's because it depends on what the story variable equals. So we're going to talk to this guy. We're going to get a quest. Okay, so now the story equals 1. So the story is greater than 0, so it's going to run that chunk of text I added, and it's going to skip that initial text because that was in the if statement of if n story equals 0. So he's no longer going to introduce himself. So let's talk to him now. All he says is, have you shut that tree up yet? And Dink says, I'm working on it. So you can see how that's worked. Now if we talk to the tree, hi, how are you? I am truly good. Yeah, about that I need you to shut up. Why? You are a tree, you're not meant to talk, and you're lame. Well, as long as I'm here, I'm alive. That doesn't mean you need to talk. You truly think so? Ho ho ho. And if we talk to the tree again, it's just a simple say line, I'll chop my tree sap out until you leave, ha ha. And like I said, it didn't say that line straight after because we made the game stop reading the script with that return line. So Dink has to re-talk to the tree for that line to come up. And now if we go back to the green guy, the story now equals 2. So have you shut that tree up yet? I'm working on it. And now it's going to do that if statement of if story equals 2. And Dink's going to say, I think I need to kill it. And the green guy's going to say, I have some tree poison in my house. Just head east to find it. So the player can sort of get a clue if he doesn't know where to go and he goes back and talks to the guy. And that's the reason for that. And now the story does equal 2, so when Dink enters his screen, the bag's there, and Dink says, there's a bag of tree poison over there, that might help. That's that script that we attach to that screen working. And it'll happen every time we enter the screen while the story variable equals 2. We get the bag, the story variable now changes to 3. So if we enter the screen, that script isn't running that conversation line anymore. And what you'll notice is even though we've already collected the bag, it's still there. And that's sort of a bug, but that's something I'm going to fix in the next video because I'm going to explain editor numbers, which is sort of like a variable, but it's not. I see it as an inbuilt variable. But the reason that bag's still there is we've put this if statement here, where if the story is lower than 2, then it kills it. Now when we collect the bag, the story's changed to 3. So the story isn't lower than 2. In fact, it's 3. So it's greater than 2. So it's still going to be there even though we've already collected it. Which is actually going to mess with things. Hang on, I've got 2 open here. There we go. It's going to mess with things later if we want to change the story variable to 4, and then the player can come back and collect it again and it changes it back to 3. Once again, it messes with things, but I'm going to show you how to fix that in the next video. So anyway, we've collected the bag, the story variable equals 3, and now if we talk to the tree, nothing happens because we don't have an if statement for if the story variable equals 3. So nothing's happening there. But if we talk to the green guy, we have that if statement there. Have you shut that tree up yet? I'm working on it. I think I need to kill the tree with this poison I found. Well, what are you waiting for? Hurry up and put that tree out of my misery. So you can see how all that works. Also, you might have noticed one other thing that I changed between that time that I stopped the video, which was a simple spelling mistake of poison. I spelt it E-N instead of O-N, so yeah. That's another thing I changed. So that's basically the end of this tutorial. It was quite a long one. And I'm going to see you in the next video, where I'm going to show you how to make that bag not come back.